I often hear people make comments that insinuate that kids of this era are more intelligent than kids of previous eras because they know how to operate smart gadgets, they know how to use the remote control, which is not true. The difference between the kids of this era and previous eras is not intelligence, but rather exposure. Let me explain. You say it's very easy to look dumb if you lack exposure. That's why exposure is important. I'll give you an example. A few years back, me and my sister were at Garden City Mall and we decided to get some snacks. So off we went to Ochumi supermarket then, when it was still open. And as we were still looking through the snack options, there came a young boy. He was around 7, 8ish, and he was also looking for snacks. Quickly he found what he wanted, and before we knew it, he started yelling, "Aveno! Aveno!" So I drew closer and told him that is not how it works in a supermarket. I took him through the drill and off he went. Now, I have a 3-year-old niece who is very intelligent. So when you go to the supermarket with her, she knows you go to the shelf, pick what you want, bring it to the counter, they pack for you, and off you go. She's not yet accustomed to the billing part. Yeah. So when you bring the two kids together, this 3-year-old niece of mine will look more intelligent than the 7-year-old boy, which is not true. I'm not taking away from my niece's intelligence. However, the true difference between these two kids is exposure. My niece has been to the supermarket more often with her parents, with her niece, with her aunties, with her friends than this young boy. The exposure this young boy had was for the small neighborhood shops that we have here in UG, the ones we refer to as a duka. Now, in these neighborhood shops, when you go to make a purchase and you don't find the attendant, all you do is yell, "Aveno, Aveno," and the attendant will come up front, they will transact with you, and off you leave. Now, this young boy is intelligent according to the environment he has been in, according to the exposure he has. So when he came to the new setting of a supermarket, he somehow looked dumb because he lacked the exposure, but that was not true, was not dumb. That's why exposure is important. I'll give you another scenario. We've often heard the saying that goes, if you hang or relate with five wise men, soon you'll become the 6th wise man. And how does that happen? Exposure. You see, when you start hanging or relating with wise men, you get exposed to how they do business, their daily habits, what they consider before making decisions, and so forth. And if you get to implement the way they do things in your life, soon you'll start seeing positive results. Soon you'll start seeing better results in your life. And so, because you've changed your perspective, you've changed your way of thinking, you're starting to do things and think like the wise men. The fruits you will be producing will be of that caliber. That's why with time you become the 6th wise man. Exposure. I'll conclude with this. Last night I was watching a Trevor Noah interview. Trevor Noah is a South African comedian who is now big in Hollywood. And the host of the interview asked him a question. He asked him whether he ever dreamt of being a big Hollywood stand-up comedian? And Trevor Noah said no. And he went ahead to explain. He said he never dreamt of being a big Hollywood stand-up comedian. Reason being, he didn't have that exposure. He lacked the exposure. And having read Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime, I remember vividly he did mention pirating movies, making copies of them and then selling them on the black market. However, then there were no CDs or videos of big stand-up comedians doing their thing in the big arenas, the big stadiums, and so he didn't have that exposure. So Trevor Noah concluded like this. He said, sometimes our dreams are limited by the kind of exposure we have. And I did resonate with that so much, because when I think back on the kind of dreams I used to have, they are totally different from the dreams I have now because of the exposure I have now. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you picked a thing or two from this video, even though I didn't list bullets or anything like that. Drop me a like if you like the content in this video. Until next time, ciao.